Okay, I'm trying to rerun on this video with better sound with the headphones on, because I realised that most of the sound quality is really terrible in my previous videos. And this is birthed 10 years old, when I was just a little girl. In the first one I said about watching Tremea over at Trey Appling 1 on YouTube. I'll try and remember to link her down below. She's got a lot of the same issues as me. I've took a lot of inspiration and strength from watching her videos, and I think everyone that watches mine for my health reasons should probably go and check Trey out. She's a really good girl. Much love, Trey, and wishing you well. Starting from the beginning, because I believe that the way that I was born is very much part of what has happened to me in adult life, and you know, it's got to all be connected, really, hasn't it? I wasn't expected to survive at birth. Mum had a blood clot and she was booked in for she'd been told not to have more babies after my brother, that she wouldn't survive it, but she went on ahead because she didn't want my brother to be an only child, and so I was brought into the world. She was scheduled for a caesarean. I wasn't premature, but I hadn't grown, developed inside of her, so I was really, really tiny. My bones were all hollow, I had no fingernails and stuff like that. The blood clot travelled through her heart and lung during the caesarean, and we both died and were brought back, and it was really chaotic, and Mum was taken off to the intensive care side. I was born in the hospital that was local for special babies. I was took off to the incubator in the special care baby unit, or whatever it was called, back in '77. They cut through the back of my head, leaving a big scar, and I've got a big bald patch at the back of my head, and I don't know how that happened. Obviously it was during the caesarean, and they cut into my mum and they cut into the back of my head, but I don't know how that was not noticed. No one noticed it. They put a bonnet on my head and a mask on my face, and then put me in an incubator. And this hole in the back of my head was left open, and nobody noticed it for at least several days, because it was never stitched up, so that's why it's a big open hole. Yeah, Mum was being cared for in the critical care. I was the size of a bag of sugar, and Dad said that I used to fit into the palm of his hand. I mean, my dad had massive hands, but that he could lay me in the palm of his hand like that. They gave Mum a picture of me, but because of the mask and the bonnet, she had no idea that I had a birthmark on my face, which you can see the scar. I had a big birthmark on my face in the shape of a teardrop. And I had this scar on the back of my head. They wanted to christen me as an emergency situation because they thought I wouldn't survive the night. And it was 1 in 10,000 chance. So I didn't leave the hospital till about 6 weeks, but already, obviously, I was set to survive in the face of adversity. As I started growing, Mum knew I was different and not learning to walk and talk as expected. I had no hand-eye coordination. You know, I actually genuinely struggled to pick up a cup of coffee and bring it to my lips without spilling it. I pretty much spill every cup of coffee I have. I will spill at least one bit of it. But obviously as a child, before I learned to control it, I was much worse. I couldn't do anything. I was terrible, honestly. They used to call me Catastrophe Cass, but and I pretty much was, and I pretty much have become it again. One night she saw an Open University programme about aphasia, and she got the information sent to her and went to the doctors to tell them this was what was wrong with me. They agreed, and so years of therapy in both speech and coordination began. It's now known that the coordination issue is dyspraxia, and they are two separate diagnoses, but that wasn't understood at the time. Dyspraxia was sort of known as clumsy child syndrome. It was just sort of a random thing, and a lot of my issues with my coordination was put down to the aphasia as a child, but obviously now they know it's two different conditions. It was very difficult being so different from others in the way I communicated and looked. My granddad Sid used to bribe me with pennies to say words, and he would say mum up against my cheek so I could feel it, feel how he was going mum, 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 and I could feel it against my cheek, and then I would go mum, mum. Remember, he would sit for hours and hours and hours sitting trying to teach me to speak properly. Mum never quit being determined that I could overcome this. She was a very hard-working businesswoman of the 80s. She was something really to be proud of. I mean, she was one of the first proper powerful businesswomen with her big shoulder pads and I mean, she made men shake in their boots. I think she struggled to bond with me, in all honesty. I think it's not really surprising with the birth that she went through and everything. And, you know, she pretty much went to work from I was very young. I didn't spend a lot of time with my parents. They were working. My nanny Grace and my granddad Sid, they raised us and looked after us, and they were absolutely beautiful people. Couldn't have asked to be left in the care of better people. My mum, she fought for me to attend a normal school. She thought that by making me be part of a normal community that I would behave more normal. I had a strange intelligence in spite of my issues, and at a young age I spelt the word aeroplane even though I couldn't say it. I couldn't form the word aeroplane with my mouth, but I could spell it out. And I shouldn't have been, even at that age, I shouldn't have been able to do things like that, but it was strange, and it carried on. By the age of 10, I had the reading ability of a 15-year-old. It took me a lot more effort to learn things like riding a bike. I'd be off the bike every 5 seconds. And I kept saying I couldn't do it, and I couldn't do it, and my mum would get me back on the bike and say, yes, you can do it, and my dad would be like holding on to me and trying to let go, and you know, it was a lot more effort that went into learning those basic things than what would normally go into a normal child. And my mum's perseverance got me there in the end, no matter what. And I'm so glad she pushed me, as I didn't think I could have lived a normal life as what I have had, if you can call it that. Later, I met a lad with the same issues as me. He had been born with the same brain damage as me. And his parents, they hadn't pushed him like my parents had. They had mollycoddled him, wrapped him up in cotton wool, and his disability was blatantly obvious for everyone. Everyone knew he was outcast at school. I felt so sorry for him. I used to be like the one that would go and talk to him, because, you know, that was awful to see that I knew that he had the same conditions as me, and they hardly knew that I had these issues by the time I got older. Though now, since getting ill, as I say, the brain fog, the lack of control over my body and my mind, the way that I'm on a lot of medications, the aphasia and dyspraxia are now very much more evident than they were for the majority of my life, except for when I was really young. It's almost like my brain was trained to do all these things, and now that I'm not very well, I can't cope with all of that. So I don't manage quite as well to cover up my disabilities there, and it can be upsetting. It adds more risk and danger to my day-to-day life. I have a lot of accidents, spilling hot drinks down myself and all sorts. Growing up with a birthmark was okay among my family. They always told me I was beautiful and it was a beauty spot, and that I should be glad that I'm different from everyone else. But then I went to school. I got into normal school that my mum wanted me to go to, and it was quite hard. It was hard, you know. Kids are really cruel, and if anything, it has taught me to be not as spiteful, and, you know, I think it has made me a better person. I would never ever be as cruel and callous as I have been treated. I think I've then also gone on to teach my children not to be cruel. I've taught them of my experiences. Although my son Declan, he has a birthmark on the back of his neck as well, so he understands a lot of that. But, you know, don't be spiteful, don't be malicious and callous. Life is hard enough as it is without people going out of their way to be horrible. Don't call people names like spastic and retard, which they went for a phase where all of their age group were calling out retard to everyone, and I got really angry with it, because people used to do that just to try and hurt my feelings, you know. My birthmark is still a part of my soul, though it is gone from my face now. I will never lose the person that made me be. Regardless that anyone that meets me now can't look at me and go, oh God, look at her face. They might say it because I look a wreck, but they're not going to say it because I look different from everybody else. So that was my childhood when I was just a little girl. I don't have a lot of memories from when I was just a little girl. I'm pretty sure there was quite a lot more that happened, but I just wanted to give a general view of how I was born and the illnesses that I had when I was young, and the things that I had to overcome. And I'm still here now. Much love, guys. Thanks for joining me. I hope this is a bit of a better video for the sound. Please do subscribe if you want to know more. Hit the like button if you want me to know that you want to know more. And comment down below if you've had any of the issues that I've got, if you know anyone that has, or if you're just out and out interested in asking questions. please do give me a comment, give me a message. I'm very happy to hear from any of you. Much love, breathe easy folks.